It worked. We are live. Yay. Okay, so we are here for day one of the 21-day quantum body reset. And I was just having a conversation. I think I'm going to put part of that conversation on a separate track somewhere else so you can listen to it because it was really helpful. Just kind of unpacking what these 21 days is. Yes, we're moving our body, but we are moving so much more, and that our body is an extension of all of us. It is us. It is our essence. It is our being, it is our spirit. It is our cells and our bones, our DNA and the whole thing. So we are going to start with some movement. But before that, I wanted to just talk about some of the principles that hold me in this work that I do, or that hold my framing of this movement. And very, I'd say, basic ideas, staying, like, these are more guidelines, I think, for you as well. These first few, staying curious about what's happening in your body. I think that we're often taught movement from a do this, do that. This is right, this is wrong. But I want you to be curious as to what feels right? Stay with your felt sense. And we'll talk a lot about that, of really listening to the sensations that are happening in your body as you move. And sometimes I've heard this so many times in my life as a body worker. Well, it was painful. That means it's good. No pain, no gain. And I'm like, no, pain is pain. And we don't necessarily know what it means. And we all respond differently to pain. Is pain something being taxed to the point where it doesn't like it and it aggravates it and it doesn't heal, or it keeps kind of setting off the nervous system, so the nervous system protects and we don't get further because the body then sees that place or that movement as unsafe? So really listening, observing, following what's happening in your body. Go slow. If anything feels clicky, crampy, pulley, pinny, painful, slow down, tune back into your breath. Maybe even notice that you're not breathing, or your breath is very shallow, or your diaphragm is very suspended, held, gripped. Okay, so those are basics. And then the other principles are really that it is a creative, we are creative beings, and that our body is an expression of that creativity, through our sound, through our writing, through our visuals, through what we create in relationships, through even just creating the expression of ourselves, right? Whether it's a movement, whether it's a song, whether it's running, whether it's dancing. So really feeling into what the creative process is within you, looking for the beauty, looking for the cohesiveness, looking for the expansion, right? Maybe you see, maybe you feel, maybe you hear. Good. And then other things that I would say are really understanding that there's enough space to hold all of us in our experience. And in movement, right, we want to make space for all of us, for our fear, for our thought process, for our not understanding, our confusion, our wanting more, or wanting to push, or wanting to back off, right? That there's space for all of it. Okay, so I think that's a good place for now. That's a lot. It may not seem like a lot, but it's a lot. So we are going to start moving, and I am going to start as simply. And I do move slow for a reason, right? It's because most of us move very fast. The mind, right? The mental field is quite fast. Our mental energy can be quite fast. And I want to slow us down to the level of the body, which is slow. And there's Fast is not better than, slow is not worse than or better than. They're just different speeds of listening, of feeling, of experiencing. And it will shift as we build over these 21 days. But again, staying with the spaciousness, the openness to what's happening to your experience. Notice when your thoughts change, when your breath changes, when your anything in your awareness changes. Okay, so let us start. Let's actually start on our backs. Let's start standing. And then we'll move to our backs. There's the cat. I'm trying to teach him to be a cameraman, but he's not catching on. He doesn't want that job. Okay. All right, so just standing, feet comfortable, distance apart, just feeling yourself in your verticality, right? This is one of the gifts of being in a human body, is that we are upright, vertical, fully connected to the ground, as well as connected to our environment, right? What is above us, what is below us. And not that animals don't have that, they do. They have a different relationship to it. Good. And just a little shift to one side, slow, slow, slow. I'm just landing more weight over one leg. And then I'm going to do a slow, slow, slow shift towards the other leg. Just even starting to feel the shape of the feet on the ground. Right? Can you feel the edges of your feet? Do you feel more weight on the outer or inner or center? More in the heel or the ball? And I'm going to shift to that first side again, nice and slow. Again, noticing the shape of the feet, or right, if you, like we do hand prints, right? We paint our hand and then put it on a piece of paper, and some places the color's darker where there's more pressure, more weight. And then to the second side, I'm moving slowly. So where is the weight in your feet? And then coming back to center, and see if you can feel weight down through one leg, down through the other, and feel somewhat even. And if it doesn't feel even, can you notice where your favor is? Are you biasing one leg? Maybe you can even do a little slightly quicker shift side to side, just to feel, oh, this side feels more familiar, this side feels less familiar. Good. So in body world, we often talk about the legs starting at the diaphragm. And so if you reach up and you feel, trace where your lower ribs are, right, the circumference of the lower ribs, our diaphragm attaches to that rim of the ribs, and it tucks up under, kind of inside the ribs, and up over the liver on the right and over the stomach on the left. Right, comes and sits up under the heart sits on the diaphragm, the lungs sit on the diaphragm. And as we inhale, diaphragm has a little bit of that dome shape. As we inhale, the diaphragm moves down. That might be an exaggeration of movement. And our pelvic base, right, the tissue between the pubis, the sitting bones, and the tailbone, diamond shape, also moves down. So respiratory diaphragm, pelvic diaphragm move down with the inhale, and then back up to just a little bit more of a dome shape. But the tendon of the diaphragm that moves down the back line in front of the spine, down the front of the spine into the base of the pelvis. Psoas also moves down the front of the spine, connecting to their upper inner thigh. And so diaphragm connecting to bowl of pelvis, connecting to leg. Leg connecting to earth. Breath connecting to earth. Breath also connecting to heart, right? There is this upward and downward movement, upward energy, downward energy. Right? Inner energy, outer energy. You can think of it as yin yang, right? Masculine, feminine, but more centralized, directive energy, more expansive, diffuse, open energy. Okay, let's do a little bit of movement. So hands on your hips, hip bones. Just going to let one knee bend. Going to keep the hip over the foot. Same leg straightens. Second knee bends. And straightens. My back just adjusted. First knee bends, one leg at a time. Straighten. And bend. And straighten. So the pelvis does a little tip. And straighten, which then tips the whole, right, the spine starts to bend. And straighten. Good. And now let's do a little rotation. So pelvis is going to rotate. You can even put hands on the front of your pelvis, maybe even on the breastbone. Going to turn the pelvis to one side, center, and then turn to the other side. And then turn first side and turn second side. So maybe noticing one side feels a little smoother. Maybe one side feels a little stickier, or maybe there's just places that feel like, oh, goodness, I don't do this very often, or oh, there's this pull up in my shoulder or down into my knee, turning to the second side. And again, that place of listening. Okay, and then let's put one hand on the back of the pelvis. So we did side bend, rotation. Now we're going to do a little forward and backward movement. One hand on the back of the pelvis, one hand on the front. I'm going to let the pelvis fall forward into my front hand, belly into the hand, and then tuck. So it's a little bit of an arch and a tuck. Sacrum pulls back. Belly falls forward. You can feel what's happening in your hand in the back, right? Lifts and moves forward, and then let that hand move back and down. Anterior tilt, posterior tilt, arch. When you tip forward, a little bit more of a back bend, tuck. And then making that smaller and smaller until you feel the pelvis almost stand upright. Good. Let's go to the ribs. So I'm going to try to just move the rib cage. So I'm going to tip one side of the rib cage towards the pelvis. I'm doing the right ribs down to the right side of the pelvis. I get compression on one side, length on the other side of the waist. And then come up and do the other side. I am letting my head try to stay more vertical, my eyes horizontal. Right, so we also get side of waist, side of neck. Spine is doing a little bit of a lateral curve, tip, center, tip, center. Good. And then rotation. So pelvis staying neutral, head staying neutral, ribs turning to one side, center, and turning to the other side. And center. Again, maybe just notice where's the pull, where's any stress, and go slower. Notice when your breath wants to stop. Good. Notice if you soften, can you go a little further, or at least have it be a little softer? And back to center. Good. And then I'm going to do front and back again. So you can put one hand on the back, one hand on the front, maybe. Head's going to stay somewhat neutral, but I'm going to tip the ribs forward and down. And then tip the ribs back and down. So front body, front ribs go down and forward. Back ribs go down and back, front ribs lift. Again, a little bit of almost flexion and extension in that mid and upper back. And then letting it get smaller and smaller until it feels a little bit more balanced, like you're not falling forward or back. Good. Head. Just going to let the head tip to one side and center and other side. And notice where there's a pull, not necessarily needing to push into the pull, just notice it. What can soften? Right, if you go softer, does it yield a little bit more? And then center, and let's rotate. So head turning to one side, center, other side. I'm noticing that my neck turns, the upper neck turns easily going one side, the lower neck has a harder time turning. And then when I go the other way, just the opposite, gets a little thick in the upper neck, a little more smooth in the lower neck. Get a little bit of relationship to the ear on one side, the jaw on one side. And then coming back to center. And let's do chin to chest. And back up to center and lifting chin. And back up to center. And lowering the chin and go as slow as you need to go. So you're really noticing, right, this compression in the front of the neck, or shortening in the front of the throat, lengthening in the back. What does that feel like? And then what happens when you shorten the back? And lengthen the front. What do you need to shift? And then coming back to center. And then just feeling this relationship, pelvis, ribs, head. Good. And then let's come to lay on the floor. And so I'm going to lay with my knees bent, feet flat on the floor, just for a few breaths, just to let the lower back settle. Back of the pelvis, back of the ribs. Feeling the shoulders and the upper arms get heavy. And let's actually, and anytime you need to make adjustments, please do so. If you need to put a little bit of height under your head, just a little bit, just so you don't close off the throat. But right, some of us have a harder time putting our head flat back. But let's bring hands onto the lower belly. So fingertips near your pubis, heel of the hand near your frontal hip bones, roughly, just so your hands are in your lower belly. And play with your inhale, moving into the hands. And letting your inhale fill into that lower belly, even if just a little bit. And then you can almost imagine, because the floor is against the back of the pelvis, you can almost imagine the breath moving between the hands in the front and the floor in the back. And what we're really asking is the diaphragm to move down, to send more right. I guess when the diaphragm moves down, the organs get displaced down towards the pelvic base or pelvic floor so that we get to displace the pelvic floor as well. And let, again, all the organs move down. That we want that movement, massages the organs, it helps move blood through the organs. And whatever else the organs are processing. Smooth, slow inhale, smooth, slow exhale. And again, looking for smooth. So anytime we change the breath, sometimes there can be a quickening. That the breath very directly impacts the nervous system. So again, looking for the balance between not too stimulated, not so sleepy and passive. Just adding a little bit of kind of guidance, gentle guidance to the breath. Good. And then just pause here and let's add a little bit of movement to that. So we did this standing, but we're going to play with that anterior posterior tilt of the pelvis. So letting your weight, I'm going to roll or rock down the pelvis towards the sitting bones. So I'm emphasizing the weight on the sitting bones so that the waist lifts away from the floor just a little bit. Again, coming back to that arch. And then rolling up the length of the sacrum. So the waist then gets heavy and the sitting bones tailbone tips up away from the floor towards the backs of the legs. A little bit of a tuck. And rocking down towards the sitting bones, letting the waist lift. And then rocking up the length of the sacrum, waist heavy, sitting bones lift. And going slow, right? So you can, one, let the feet be heavy and the thighs be heavy and the hips be heavy. And depending on your body, you might feel movement just in the pelvis. Again, if you feel a lot of sensation or sharpness, make it smaller. You might start to feel more movement in the back of waist up towards the lower ribs. And it doesn't necessarily mean moving bigger movements to get that movement. Sometimes it's just the softness in the system. So let's play with the next time you anteriorly tilt the body, ideally will naturally inhale. There's more opening in the diaphragm. And then as you posteriorly tilt or tuck, that exhale comes in. The abdominals are contracting a little. Inhale, the muscles along the spine are contracting, the belly is expanding, diaphragm can move down. And tucking, posterior tilt, waist towards the floor, abdominals engaged just a little bit. Couple more. Just syncing the breath with the movement. Again, try to smooth it out. And let's extend the legs for a moment. Let's take one leg, so you can even keep your hands right on your front of the pelvis, close to the frontal hip bone. And just roll one leg in and out, toes in towards the other leg, and then toes out away from the center line of the body. And again, let the leg be heavy. Let it be smooth movement. And notice where it feels easy. Notice where the tissue feels grabby. Could be around the hip or the knee or the ankle. Could be more grabby on the outer leg or the inner leg. Just notice. Or somewhere else. And then relax that effort. And then the other leg rolling in towards the other leg and then rolling out. Again, noticing your breath. Sometimes we hold the breath to move. See if you can keep the breath moving with the movement and even sync the breath with the movement. And then relax the effort. Let's bend the knees again. Let's take the arms out to the side, at least away from the body. It can be straight out to the side. So I'm going to play with a little bit of, we're just going to break this down. I'm not going to tell you. So I'm going to press into my right foot. Put a little weight down into the foot, just a little. And as I put weight down into the foot, the knee will move kind of up a little, and the thigh will move up, and the hip will move up to follow the knee. So it's almost pulling the thigh and the hip off the floor a little. And then slowly lower the hip back down, thigh settling back into the hip joint. Same thing, press into the foot a little. Knee will move up and away from the face, thigh will move up and away, hip will move up. And then slowly lower the hip back down. Good, one more like that, pressing the foot down, lifting the knee, thigh, hip. Notice what happens in the pelvis. The pelvis tips a little to the left. And then slowly lower that right hip down. Now we're going to change the focus of our effort. I'm going to pull that right hip back into the floor. I'm trying to press the back of the pelvis down, just that right side. And then relax that effort. And again, I'm going to pull just the hip into the floor. What happens is there's less weight on that right foot. And the thigh comes there's a little engagement towards the hip. And then relax that effort. And again, pull the hip into the floor. And you might even notice that the pelvis rocks to the right a little. And then relax that effort. And just take a pause. Maybe even straighten the legs just for a breath. Roll them in and out. And let's bend the knees. And we'll do the other side. So left foot presses. Knee's going to lift and move towards the toes. Thigh's going to lift. Hip is going to lift. Right, pelvis is going to tip to the right. And then lowering the hip down, thigh, less weight in the foot. And then press into the foot, knee lifts and moves towards the foot side of the room. Thigh lifts, hip lifts, pelvis tips to the right. And then lowering down. Notice if you're holding your breath. Notice if this side feels really different than the other side. The initiation or the range of motion. Is there more sharpness or more clarity? Press into the foot, lift the knee, the thigh, the hip. And lower down. And then let's change. Let's pull that left hip back into the floor. And you'll feel the foot getting lighter, and then release that effort. And again, pull the hip into the floor, letting the pelvis tip. And again, you get to really listen to sensation, like what starts to show up in your body when you add this kind of force, load, torsion, right? Even at these smaller levels, it's still quite a bit. Again, pull that hip into the ground, let the pelvis turn a little to the left, and then release. Good, and again, let's extend the legs for a moment, just roll them in towards each other and out. Take a pause. And bend the knees again. Good. So arms, I guess, a little bit away from the body. So I'm going to press into that right foot again. Let the knee lift, thigh lift. Pelvis, right side of the pelvis lifts. Pelvis tipping to that left side. And then pull that left hip into the ground a little bit. It's going to turn the pelvis a little bit more. And then slowly rock back. And then let's tip the other way. So left foot presses, knee lifts and moves towards the toes, thigh lifts, left side of the pelvis. Pelvis tips to the right, and then pull that right side down into the ground just a little. Foot gets light. And listening to your body, and then rolling back onto your back. First side, right foot presses, knee lifts, hip lifts, right hip pulls down to the floor. And slowly rock back to center, left foot presses, knee lifts, thigh lifts, hip lifts, right foot presses. Good. And back to center. One more time each side. See if you start to feel an understanding. Do both things happen at the same time, or do you have to push down into the right foot, then pull with the left? And again, let it be smooth, simple. Connect your breath to the movement. And then come back to center, straighten the legs, turn the toes in and out. Good. Good. Let's bend the knees again. Let's take the arms further out from the body. Just going to do a little upper body. So I'm going to take that right arm up to the ceiling. And then just reach it across to the left. Maybe even let the head roll to the left. Right hand is going to reach either to the upper arm, maybe to the elbow, maybe to the shoulder. And then back up to the ceiling and out to the right. Left arm up and across. Ribs are going to roll a little. Even let that arm bend to reach towards the other arm. Head rolls, neck rolls. And then left arm back and up out to the side. Right arm up and across. Notice if that second time feels a little bit easier. The body knows what it's doing. Left arm up to the ceiling and across. And again, noticing when the breath catches, noticing when the body wants to push, noticing when the body wants to stop. And then bringing the arms closer to the body, extend the legs. Just another breath or two. Just letting everything settle. Feeling your back against the ground. The heels, the calves, the buttocks, the ribs, the backs of the arms, the head. Feeling the movement of your breath. Good. And extend knees and roll to your side. And come up to sit. Good. Okay. So I guess there were other couple thoughts I had before I asked the question. Just as far as what we might cover, talked about a little bit of just inner and outer, right? We're going to be moving the body more externally and listening internally. Some movement, we'll do developmental movement. We did a little bit of the rolling. It's not quite developmental movement, but it's that the syncopation in the body. We'll do a little crawling, sitting, standing. We've done some of that. But the progression, and also just unwinding, right? What needs to unwind in the body, what needs to find a new path or new pattern, what needs to strengthen, what are our cycles, what is our interconnection. And then just thinking about the body as far as healing, we're focused on movement per se, but there's also the element, right? These are what I consider the elements of healing, or things that we look at as healers: the biomechanical, how things move; the biochemical, what are the inner workings of the organs. It's quite a lot, from our nervous system to our hormones. The fascial matrix, which relates to injuries, surgeries, the emotional, current and past, and our essence, our spirit, the unseen. Okay, so if there's anything, I also want to know if there's, I know we talked about goals, and I use all of this very open-handed. So I also didn't bring in this part very much, but the masculine and feminine, that we live in a very still masculine focused world, where things can be very directive, right? So holding a little bit more of the feminine, bringing that in, the open-handedness of listening, of really attuning to what's happening rather than pushing for it to happen, right? This play of doing both, but favoring the feminine, especially in these earlier places of inquiry. So when we think of goals, what does that mean? And can we be open-handed to be curious as to how that shows up in our practice, right? That it may show up very differently than we think. So what would be your goal? And again, it can change. Again, things change. If we're very open-handed, things morph and grow and transform. So if you want to maybe even express a goal, you can even take yourself off mute and say what your goal might be for this 21 days.
think for me, it's body healing and emotional balance and self-awareness.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I would say for me, my goal in this is to really listen to my energy levels. And I really want um, this to be an extension of my practice. And for my personal body and astrology or connection to nature, the solstice feels like a very important time. I know we are in the window of, we just left a new moon, right? Transitioning from a new moon to a full moon, which is very close to solstice. So there's this building of the moonlight as well as, right, the moon is the reflected light or the shadowed light. Um, and the building of the sunlight towards summer solstice. So we have this kind of increasing of illumination. And that feels like a very important, especially in the world that we are in right now, and the amount of intensity that we are um not just seeing outside of us, but is also moving through us, right? That this is an incredibly poignant moment in time. And so letting this be a practice of support for my transformation and extending that out to you all, right? And is there anything you want to share on it from just from that experience? I know we went very, just kind of internal in a way with that movement.
I found there were some pieces that were doing some odd things, and I'm going to have to work on that. I noticed when we were doing some of the standing work that there was a moment in time when I all of a sudden felt a sharp point, and I'm pretty sure it came from an area that was an incision um, for a surgery a while ago. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't remember feeling that before, but all of a sudden we tweaked it today. But it was more awareness, not pain. And I also found that one of my thighs was very comfortable with what we were doing when we were focusing on, pressing our foot and moving the pelvis, and then one of the thighs, it was cramping every time I would work on that. And I thought, well, this is a sign I need to work with that again and
Hmm.
spend some time on that area. So I'm going to try to play the replays and do this again.
Yeah. And again, we will touch on to it. That's a pretty foundational movement that we use, right? That the rocking, right? Because
Hmm.
it's how I don't think babies actually break it down like that, but it's got to get onto our side somehow.
Yeah. Well, they certainly play a lot. My baby had these little what do you call little booty things that were kind of a busy box booties, so they would reach out and want to ring the bells and kick their feet and uh I think boy, you want to talk about really feeling all the different parts of your body, watch a baby explore.
I
They're
know
all
it's
checking
so
how all of it works.
it's so fun. Maybe I'll put there's a one of my teachers she put a developmental movement video out, which is just really, it's just a baby rolling and trying to roll onto
Hmm.
its side. But yeah, I mean, part of it is just like, oh, what's over there? Or, oh, look
Yeah,
there's my foot. I think, let's see if I can get it near my mouth, or
yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I want to touch it. What is that? Oh, look, I
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
What's that?
absolutely.
What's that over there? Or I'm hungry. Where is she? Where's,
Exactly.
where's that one that gives me food?
Uh-huh. Absolutely. And it is fun. If you have those memories, they bring a smile every time when you see that, the the baby reaching out with that winsome smile or the toddler. My little toddler had a little table that he would push over so he could climb up onto the table to play in the sink. And we had a well, so we didn't worry as much about the water. And so
Yeah.
he would go and play there. And anyway, if he didn't have it over there, but he wanted to go play, he would say, "Out of the way, table coming."
Yeah. That's great.
Just nothing half, just all 100%.
Yeah. But it also is really interesting because it helps us get back into that place of rolling. Because
Yes,
some of these are very old memories, but a lot happens when we're young, and a lot of that pleasure and curiosity and excitement by everything, even just light, right?
right.
That tuning back into that is really important.
Well, and the reaching and the lengthening. One thing you did, I when you were talking about lengthening the neck and feeling the ear and the jawbone, I did something in my neck where it lengthened, and I realized that most of the time I'm compressed, the whole
Mm.
thing. I felt like I gained like an inch. I mean, it was amazing. I was like, wow, you really have to think about that. And uh, so I'm gonna play around with that some. It was
Yeah,
really
good,
fun. This was a great day.
good.
Uh,
Yay.
I had
All
a
right.
quick question
Yes,
about
please.
whether enrollment is still open. I mean, I know that it's already begun today, but I thought of a friend while we were doing this. I'd love to send her the link if it's still open.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like things have been very chaotic, and as much as I would like
Hmm.
everybody to come in at the same time, that's just not how life is going to work. Some people are signed up in other countries and other time zones, and so they're going to be watching the replays. Um, I know that it's easier when we show up live to stay consistent, but I also know that I can do it as well, that I can follow something as well, not showing up live. So I think it's possible. So it is a little open-handed. People are going
Okay.
to come in
I,
and out.
I will send her the link after as soon as we get off of here. Thank you. Oh,
Okay,
you were going to end.
I'm going to end. So I'm just going to, I don't know, say, yay, I'm glad you're here. And again, this is a little bit longer day, but we'll do some bite-sized chunks just so that it's easy to digest. There's something more about consistency this is something that I learned a long time ago, rather than doing really hard, really strong once a week or twice a week. It's just easier for the body to do smaller bits more consistently. So look forward to seeing you and letting me just know how I can support you and what you need to to get the most out of it and to get in conversation with your body without freaking out, right? That's really ultimately what I want. Yes. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow.